Good morning, everyone. Can you all see me? Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheila Wee, and I'm a storyteller. I've been a professional storyteller for the past 21 years now. It's the best job in the world, I think. I'm Singaporean, although most people don't believe it because of the way I look, but the name would be a clue, Sheila Wee. The Singaporean originally was my husband, but I joined him about 6 years ago. Not joined him in marriage, joined him as a Singaporean. But I've lived in Singapore nearly all of my adult life. 37 years this year. It makes me feel very old. But I'm very glad to be here and talking to you, and because you give me the excuse to get dressed up this morning, put a bit of makeup on, which I haven't done for a long while because I've been staying at home for the last 8 weeks because I was in hospital in January with asthma, and my specialist said no going out because I'm at risk. So this is wonderful. Very happy to be here. Apologies if you've been waiting a while. Although I practiced this 3 times, I still didn't press the right button at the end. But hopefully now you are actually seeing me and listening to me. And today I want to share with you a story from China. Please forgive me if I pronounce any words wrong, although I made sure there were not any Chinese words there that I could go too wrong with. I learned that lesson. Don't do complicated stories where you can't pronounce the words. But it's one of my favorite stories, and I'd like to share it with you. Long ago in China, there were 2 villages, uh, each on one side of a river. The village of Wei was on this side, and the village of Chu was on that side. Now, in the village of Wei, the people were farmers, and they grew only one crop there, melons. But they were very good farmers. They had the best melons, best, sweetest, juiciest melons that you could think of. And when they took them to the market at harvest time, people would descend on their stalls and buy them in no time because they were so good. And of course, because they were so good and so much in demand, they got a good price for them. And the people of Wei grew prosperous on those sweet, juicy melons. Now, over the river in the village of Chu, the people were also mostly farmers, but their melons were not as good. When they took them to the market, hardly anybody wanted to buy them. Only the poorest people would buy the melons from Chu because they were not sweet. They were not very juicy. They had that mealy, floury mouthfeel to them. And so they got very little money for them. So life was different in Chu. They looked over the river and saw the people of Wei prospering while they struggled. Now, one evening, some of the people in Chu were gathered together, chatting and drinking the rough rice wine that was all they could afford. And as the evening progressed and more wine was drunk, the conversation went around to the village of Wei over the water. And the conversation got more and more heated. And more anger came up in those people's hearts. Why should they have so much when we have so little? And the heat of the anger fueled by the drink eventually led one of the men to say, "Come, let's go. Let's go and destroy their melon fields." That was all it took. Just that one sentence. And they were up rushing home, fetching their axes, and walking across the bridge to the village of Way. They walked quietly, creeping through the silent village of Way where all were asleep. And then they went out into the melon fields, and they set about with their axes, hacking and digging, hacking and chopping, until every single melon was destroyed. And then they slunk back silently through the village, back to their beds. The next morning, the people of the village of Way woke up as normal. They ate their breakfasts and went out into the melon fields. But what they saw made them stop, made their jaws drop. Every single melon was destroyed. They were puzzled, but not for long. Very soon their eyes looked over the river to the village of Chu. They knew those Chu villagers must have done it. Who else could have done it? And they were angry, rightly angry. And in their anger, they decided that they would go that night and destroy the melon fields of Chu. They would get their revenge. Now, some of the villagers of Wei went to their headman, an old man called Song. He was much respected in the village. He was very old, but wise. And when he heard what they planned to do, he said, wait, stop a moment, think. Our two villages have lived in peace and harmony for centuries. Do you want to break that now? If you go and destroy their melon fields, we will be enemies. I think I have a better idea. Instead of going tonight with your axes, go this afternoon with your watering cans. Go and water the melon fields of Chu. For the reason that they are angry and resentful of us is that they cannot grow good melons. They do not know how to grow good melons like we do. Go and teach them. Teach them the right time to water, the right amount to water. Teach them how we fertilize our soil to get the best, sweetest, juicy melons. Teach them how to judge the right time to pick those melons for market. Teach them this, and then we can live in peace. Now, many of the Wei villagers were still angry, but they respected Song, and they decided to try. So that afternoon, they took their watering cans and they filled them with water in the river, and they walked over the bridge to the village of Chu. When the women and children and old men in the village saw them coming, they were terrified. And so were the men in the fields. They were puzzled when they started watering the melons, puzzled and then suspicious. Were they going to poison their melons? But then the Wei villagers began to talk to them, to teach them the right amount of water, what you could use to fertilize the melons, how to judge the right time to pick them. And the villagers of Chu listened, they watched, and they learned. And a few months later, when they took their melon crop to the market, the people of the town were surprised. These are not Chu melons. They're Wei melons. How can Chu melons be so sweet and so juicy? But over time they learnt that melons from both the villages of Wei and Chu were the very best in the region. And the people of Chu prospered. like the people of Wei. Now, the people of Chu were very grateful to the Wei villagers, and they made a special medal of friendship, and it was presented to Song, the old headman of the village of Wei. Now, if you go to China today, I know you can't go to China today, but once this is all over, if you go to China and you come across those two villages, one on either side of a river, then be sure to go to the village of Wei. Ask for the headman's house and ask to see that special medal of friendship, for I'm sure it's still there. Thank you so much for listening to that. When I did this, um, first I looked into melons in China, and melons, when you think of China, you think of watermelons because they are the largest producers. But I discovered watermelons were only introduced to China about 700 years ago. So those melons in that story could not be watermelons because this story actually comes from the Warring States period, which was between 475 and 221 BC. So it couldn't have been watermelons. Then I thought about hammy melons. Those are so famous, but they were introduced in the 17th and 18th century. Melons actually came from Africa originally. So I wondered what sort of melons they really were. Maybe it was winter melon, in which case my story doesn't make sense because they wouldn't be sweet. But if anybody knows, please let me know. Thank you very much for listening. And have a good day and enjoy the rest of the program today. Thanks a lot. Bye.